Thank you, Firefighter Craig and Dr. Knoll, for all those informative lessons that we've had with all the different colored pages. Now let's wrap up our tour of the 2020 ERG with the final white pages. Out here in the back, we may think that it's not very important. Oh, but it is, Truckee. It's very important. We sit here and take a look at page 354, and this gives us our ERG user guide. This is something that somebody would look at least once a year to make sure we remember how to use this book. Because like we've already seen in the last 3 videos, there is a lot to understand, and we can accidentally go down the wrong path, which can get us and the public hurt if we do it incorrectly. So I recommend that you take a look at this ERG user guide at least once a year. Within it, it reminds us how to get into the orange pages, and if we need to go and take a look at the green pages as well. It gives us the capacities for a large versus a small spill, and it can help us understand day versus night, like Dr. Knoll talked about, and what the difference between evacuation and shelter in place are. As we carry on through our white pages, we can see what protective clothing is, because we may not always remember exactly what all these acronyms are, like CPC or SFPC. Well, back here on page 360, it gives us definitions for what the SCBA is, what structural firefighter protective clothing is. And we carry on, and we can take a look at what decontamination means per the ERG, as well as fire or spill control. Do all these terms start to sound familiar? Firefighter Craig talked about them when he referenced the orange pages. And now we carry on and we see some of the new updates that have been in some of the more recent versions of the ERG. The BLEVE and the heat-induced tear. So we can see for specific chemicals that we have to watch out for that dreaded BLEVE or potentially a heat-induced tear, which is still bad, but not nearly as bad as a BLEVE. And right there on page 367, we have our BLEVE chart. It says, most importantly, we use with caution. For all my responders here in America, make sure we take a note and identify that our gallons, our feet, and our pounds are in parentheses. For everybody else, everything is in meters and liters. So this helps us out to identify how much water we need to put on a tank, how much time we have before the tank may fail, and how far we have to evacuate to keep the public and ourselves safe. Other additional information in the back of this book is criminal or terrorist use of chemical, biological, and radiological events. Once again, this is a large mouthful, and this doesn't even sound like it's transportation related. Well, that's right, it truly isn't transportation related. But the writers of the ERG recognized that we respond on so many different calls. If we have this valuable information at our hands, we can help in one of these worst case scenarios that is very high risk, low probability. So we can see indicators of biological incidents, we can see personal safety considerations, and then decontamination measures. As we carry on through this criminal terrorist use on the portion of the book, we can see an IED standoff chart. This comes from distances and measurements that the ATF put together for us, from as small as a pipe bomb to as large as a semi-trailer that would explode. And on the next page, we have a BLEVE standoff chart for an IEDs. So small LPG tanks going all the way up to semi-tanker LPG tanks. And now we get to the back of the book that has some of the most important things. We may not always remember what all of the terms are. So the ERG helps us with a glossary to understand all the different acronyms and all of the different terms on what they mean and how they work this out. As we wrap this up, we get to see publication data and, most importantly, the Canadian and United States National Response Centers. For any large spill, it has to be reported to the Canadian and United States National Response Center so they can track all the hazmat that is released within each of our countries. With these phone numbers, we can identify assistance, resources, and we can bill for cleanup. On our back final page, we have all of our phone numbers that we need to worry about, like Canutech or Chemtrek in the United States. Now, when I call them, what am I going to get? Now, we'll talk about that in other videos, but for this, we wrap back into the front pages and we take a look on page 5 and we notice the notification and request for technical information, it will tell us to contact our national response telephone number, and it'll tell us to provide as much of the following information as possible, like your name, your callback number, and possibly a fax number if you have it. The location and nature of the problem, the name and identification number of the materials, the shipper, consignee, or the point of origin, your carrier name, rail car, or truck number, the container type and size, quantity of material transported and released, local conditions to include weather and terrain, the proximity to schools, hospitals, waterways, and other items, injuries and exposures, and then local emergency services that have been notified. With all this information, this can truly help us out in an emergency, but it's only as good as we use it. If we leave this on our fire engine and don't pull it out, we can be potential victims ourselves. So remember that, truckie.
Battalion Chief 61, Medic 22, Hazmat 59, Hazmat 69, Hazmat 94, Central Chirs.
And with that, I think I've got a job. So I have to go take care of everything. We'll see you next time here at the firehouse, campers. It's a hazmat day in the firehouse, a hazmat day in the station. Oh, would you glow? Oh, could you glow? It's a hazmat day in the firehouse, a hazmat day in the station. Would you glow? Could you glow? Won't you be my glowworm?